like chemo, they're going through something, being extra affectionate to them, giving them the things that comfort them, that matters a lot, and it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. It's all you can really do, I think. And I think it's a hard thing.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And then I think the time afterwards is going to be very important as well. As far as taking good care of yourself, allowing yourself time to grieve, looking at this as gaining new strength through challenges.
Yeah.
I think. And just one thing I would really challenge you to do, Crystal, too, is try to think about some things that you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I always do. Whenever I feel like something happened, there's some kind of tragedy or something's going on in my life that's causing me stress, one thing I always try to do is just kind of take a time out and try to identify what are the things that I've got going for me. Mm-hmm. Like, what are some things that I'm really grateful for in my life, and how can I use these things? Mm-hmm. Because those things, it can be very easy to kind of forget about that and just sink deep into a depression. Right.
And even whenever you're losing a relationship, an animal, a loved one, I think that there's value to reflecting on your gratitude for the experience. Because in the end of the relationship, however it comes to an end, especially with death, there can be so much fixation on the sorrow and the plight and the uncontrollable sadness. But I think there's so much power to playing the nostalgia wheel and saying, I'm grateful to have had this. I'm grateful to have had this cat. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful to have had these memories. This cat was there for me. It was meaningful for me. The fun pictures, the fun selfies, all of the extras. And to look at it and go, you know what? I'm grateful for this. This was positive. So Crystal, reflect on that. Remember that it's a three-dimensional relationship. Be as comforting and as kind and as authentic as you can in this final season. I think that, with the advice of your veterinarian, you're going to have to make the decision about what your ultimate choices are going to be for how the care will play out and whether or not euthanasia becomes more of the right option. But yeah, I mean, obviously we're not vets. We don't have advice on how to heal the cat. But as far as the emotional connection goes, we empathize. I think that we get it. We expect that grieving is going to have to happen, and hopefully you remember the good times as well and keep all that with you. And the bucket list is a great idea.
Right. And if your cat could talk, I'm sure your cat would say that it was grateful to have had you as an owner.
That's right, yeah.
You seem like you really care, so that's great.
You're awesome, Crystal. Hang in there, girl. We're with you. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, is a white male college student experiencing reverse racism? We'll take a look. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Hey, TheraPals. ScoopFest 2018 is coming.
2018.
October 12th through the 14th. And we are going to be there doing a live performance. But even more exciting than that is that we are meeting up with some of our fans for a special sushi, sake, and psychology lunch on October 11th at 12:30. We've changed the venue since last time we've talked. So it is now going to be at, how do you pronounce it? Goemon Sushi House?
Yep.
My Japanese is not very good. I apologize.
Goemon Sushi House. That's Goyemon.
And the address is 5255 South Decatur Boulevard. So this is going to be October 11th, 12:30 p.m. This invitation is open to any listeners who will be in town for ScoopFest or any locals as well. We have to do a reservation. So some people have already RSVP'd. So we need to know how many seats to reserve. So please contact us either email or at PodTherapyGuys@gmail.com, or just tweet to us at PodTherapy.
Guys.
Oh yeah, at PodTherapyGuys. And we will make a reservation here shortly. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next listener writes in about his college professor making him feel unsafe.
Okay, this one's really interesting. And I think it talks to a very unique dynamic that's happening in society. So this is probably the one we're going to get some hate mail on, but let's jump in. So, all right, it's titled "College Professor Makes Me Feel Unsafe as a White Male Student." College student here. I'm a senior, and I have to take this history class as a general credit to graduate. Problem is, the teacher is psychotic, and the class makes me feel very uncomfortable. My teacher is a crazy young white girl who hates white men. The other day, she told my class, primarily the white women, to never marry white men as they are racist and the root of all evil and problems. She even looked at me when she said it, as I am the only white male in the class. She constantly makes really gross generalizations and comments on how white men, quote, need to be permanently gone. I am extremely uncomfortable with this class, but I can't drop it because I need to graduate. I can't really tell my other professors about it because colleges are, as you may know, very liberal, and having a white man come to them saying he's uncomfortable will probably only get me laughed at. Unless I go to another white male professor, then maybe they might understand. I'm just trying to graduate, but I'm not sure I can continue going to this class because it feels unsafe. What should I do? Yikes. That is interesting.
Wow.
That is a really interesting piece of mail. I believe every word of that. And I think it's so tempting in today's very important cultural conversation that we're having to say, nope, that's not possible. That's not real. Fake news. Fake news, you're a plant, you're a Russian troll, or whatever. And it's like, no, he's a real human who's got his own stuff. And yeah, this is a tough situation. So
this is.
Take a shot at it, Nick, and prepare your apology letters. Yeah, you had a winning streak. 38 episodes you went.
Yeah.
Sharpen those pencils, listeners.
Well, the easiest way to not have to issue an apology statement is to not take a hard stance.
There you go.
So
that's how you should live your life.
Yeah. Wow, this is tough. I mean, this is kind of one of those things where it's like when you're, oh man, I feel the letters coming in already.
It's gonna happen. So just go.
I mean, it's
have been honest.
Okay, assuming everything in the writer's statement is exactly how he says it.
We always do, though. That's our rule,
right?
And we've explained this to the listeners before. We always give our answers based on the writer's perspective and what they've said, and we are advocating for them. They're the one who took the time to write in, asking for help.
Right. So assuming all of that this is 100% accurate and not just an issue of perception.
Yeah.
Then that's definitely, this is definitely a problem. I think it should definitely be reported. But how do you do that? I mean, honestly, if I was in his situation, the advice that I'm giving him right now is different than what I would do. Mm-hmm. If I was in his situation, I would sit through the class, I'd get my grade, and then I'd be done.
Right. Yeah.
And then move on. Maybe, what is that website? RateYourTeacher.com?
Rate My Professor.
Rate My Professor or whatever. Yeah. And then write a review on there.
Yeah.
Because if this is true,
mm-hmm.
if this is actually happening, he can't be the first person that's been like, this doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this seems very blatant and obvious.
Yes.
Right on the surface. So it can't be like the first experience.
Yeah.
So using websites or resources like that, you can probably join a whole list of other people who are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then you can probably take that to the
A
administration.
rally. Is that what you're
No.
Oh, okay. I think I was misreading what you were trying to say.
Take that to the administration.
Go buy tiki torches.
Don't buy tiki torches yet.
All right, so I'm going to give some feedback on this. First off, I think I can answer this from a couple different perspectives. First, I am a professor at Arizona State University, so I have that perspective. So whenever he says, I think this is, or whenever you say if this is happening, I'll tell you this: I have no doubt that this is all real. I have not a doubt in my mind, because I have now met a lot of people that do not have a sense of professionalism in the classroom.
Oh, okay.
Because I come from doing real clinical work, I have that mentality of like, my job is to be unbiased, my job is to deliver this curriculum to you, and not impose a worldview, like do no harm. But I have met a lot of people who just come thundering in, and they see themselves as this lecturer, this pontificator, whose job it is to challenge all worldviews everywhere and just like enunciate their doctrine.
Well, in a way, that's how you get someplace in academia. Is you come out swinging,
Yes.
and you have to be something. You got to say something that's outrageous enough to get people's attention.
Yes. I think that's what happens if you want to get on Bill Maher.
Well,
right, but not
right.
if you're trying to be real in academia. Academia is based on research. You have to deliver
that's true.
results.
True. Yes.
And so bring
if you want to sell
to
books,
the university. Yeah, if you want to. Yeah. If
versus
you have a tenure
articles.
position and you're ready to
Right.
go make some money, then you can do that and sell some books. But what I've tended to see is there's the deprofessionalization of the professor's role. The professors of yesteryear, where they're tenured, they're good at this is their entire life's work, and they have grad students that assist them in person. That's a different era. We're now in an era where, and higher education's had this problem for a while, where they just basically recruit every grad student and make them teach classes, and they have almost that Stanford prison mentality, where as soon as you make them in charge, they're torturous, and it's weird, and they're not ready for this. So the first thing I have is I do not doubt at all that this is a reality. Now that's as a professor. As a student, I had this happen. When I went to UNLV, go Rebels. When I went to UNLV,
Wolfpack.
No, that shall not happen, Jake Whiskers.
That's my It's my employer now, so I got.
Oh, that's right. Now you're big into Reno. So when I was a student, this was in the early 2000s, and 9/11 happened, right? And so obviously that crushed all of us. It was an extremely political time where there was, are we going to go to war with Afghanistan, with Iraq? George W. Bush had lost the popular vote, but he was the president, and the Supreme Court had decided he was allowed to go, and there was all this stuff, right? And I had an English teacher who one day we all come into class, and she brings in, and I am not joking, a guy she met at the Coffee Bean across the road who seemed really smart. And she gave him the podium to do her lecture that day. It's an English class. We're there to learn the mechanics of writing for college. He proceeded to go for an hour on this giant conspiracy theory. 9/11 was an inside job.
Oh my
George
God!
W. Bush
really?
Yes, George W. Bush is a plant by the Illuminati. This whole thing, it's all about oil and Dick Cheney, and he has his connections, and so this dude pontificates for an hour. Eddie was in that class with me, and out of respect, we didn't say anything, but we were both really upset, and I felt like this was really not okay. And so, and I could tell, toward the point when this guy was calling for the assassination of George W. Bush, she realized, oops, I think I made a mistake. I don't think I should have brought this guy in. I think I just sacrificed all of my credibility to do this. So, afterward, I met with her, and I was like, hey, I like you as a teacher. I think you're really good at teaching English. I'd love for you to stick to teaching English. And
I think you should do more of that.
That was way too far for me. I'm not appreciative of this. So I've seen, and obviously that didn't have to do with, it wasn't a critique on my race. But at the time, that was really hard for me to hear, and I wasn't okay with it. So, to this writer, the first two things I want to say is, I believe you. I do think it's real. The second thing is this. We're in a time right now where there is a cultural response to the privileged position in society, at least in American and Western society, that white men have historically had. Their access to wealth is different. Their criminal justice system is different. The privilege that they get away with in their human interactions, the Me Too movement, is a reaction to these things. Now, as we've seen in life, whenever you have a reaction to a problem, it's not usually very precise, on the nose, careful not to overreach. It's usually an overreaction, right? It feels like they have to punch as hard as they possibly can because they're fighting an entire institution. And if you're out there and you're part of that movement, that's good. I'm for that. And I'm with you, actually. I believe that this needs to be put in check. But I want you to remember this. And as a therapist, this is something I'm always coming back to. White men as an institution are invincible, overconfident, and dangerous. The white male who's sitting in the room with you is a person who has a name and a story and parents that love them, and is not the embodiment incarnate of everything that you find repugnant about society. And so as a professor, I think this teacher's way off. I believe that reverse racism can happen. I also believe it's a dog whistle that, people will use to try to say, oh, look at the poor white people being picked on. But that was something that, a lot of people don't even understand. Like, when we think, and I'm getting on a soapbox here, Nick, you're going to have to cut me off, but when we think about white privilege, what a lot of people don't realize is that the